Good evening, everybody. Welcome to a very special video here. I finally got the judges from our first Game Wisdom Game Jam all here in one spot. All the time zones are aligned. And I wanted to do like a kind of a post-Game Jam, like little rap session to kind of get everyone's thoughts, feedback, and also for the people watching, give them a preview as to what's going to be coming for future ones. So, I'm going to once again give everyone a chance to introduce themselves, so we'll start with Josh, go to Max, and then down to Tomo. So, Josh, feel free.
Right. Yeah, I'm Josh from Casual Game Studio. Currently working on Rooster Rampage and Samurai Pig. And that's about it.
I'm Max from Video Game Clubs of America. I was happy to be part of this. As a resident board gamer, it was cool to get a sense of what video game design was like.
And I'm Tomo. I've been a game designer for a very long time. I am a co-founder of a small studio called Hyperkinetic Studios, and we have one game on Steam called Epic Tavern, which is still in early access.
Yeah, and it's great to have everyone on. Just making sure volume levels are good. So, it has been about 2 months since the Game Wisdom Game Jam. And again, for people watching, if you somehow missed it, this was a kind of my celebration for hitting 10,000 subscribers, and people really enjoyed it. And with that, I figure we're going to try and do a few more of these, maybe do it as a regular. So I guess the first thing I want to kind of go around our little chat here. What were some of your most standout games, or the ones that you were most excited or interested after you started playing them? And feel free for anyone to start.
Well, I think next time around we should have a conversation about what are the criteria that we're going to judge them on.
Mm-hmm.
But sort of like just in terms of just universally how playable they are. I felt that obviously Offel Marco Brothers held together really well as sort of a complete experience, kind of like, visually, gameplay wise, the length of the experience overall, what you had to do. It was like, I think sometimes you can find that judging it can be more or less difficult depending on the nature of the game. I think some of the games which I found potentially more interesting had to be judged lower because it was sort of hard to really feel out the space, and there was maybe a little more confusion in the experience.
Max or Josh?
Yeah, I would agree with what Tomo said, at least in terms of the Awful Marco Brothers. I think this familiar feel of the sidewinding platformer really helped. What I discovered on my end is that computer gaming for me is very difficult with a keypad and a mouse. So for the next Game Jam, I will be trying to invest in an actual controller, because I think my personal game experience was altered because of it was like my control issue. And I think the Marco Brothers, I think, was one of the games that really I think I would have done better with the control pad. When we did our live judging, watching you play, it looked a lot easier than it was for me. And I'm going to go down to, I think it was Rise of the Tomb Lords. That reminded me of Zaxxon, the game, with the weird 3D look, and it looked really awesome for you to play. But when I downloaded it and I started playing it with my mouse, forget about it. I couldn't do it. It was totally... so I didn't judge it poorly because I couldn't play it. I was able to at least garner a little bit of what gameplay was like from watching it. But some of the games, though, that made it easy with the keypad, the puzzle platformer where you were just jumping and trying to get to the door, I think it's called Puzzle Platformer. That game reminded me of things that I would have done when I was in college, passing the time trying to get to the high score. That was actually really fun for me. And for something that was just as basic as just a couple of lines and a little doodad jumping across the screen, I remember thinking that was pretty fun.
Yeah, I mean, what really stood out to me overall, I was just really impressed by the creativity and the diversity, and how well everyone did with the theme overall. And of course, I'm going to agree with everyone else on Awful Marco Brothers. just being like a really complete experience. I also had the same problem like Max. I did not play as well as Josh. Yeah, and watching Josh, I was like, oh yeah, this is great. And I was playing it, and I just no, it was like 10% of the skill. But I mean, overall, just really impressed with everybody's creativity, and nothing was really very similar. Like a lot of times during game jams, you will see like the same type of copycat thing over and over again, and just that really impressed me is that everybody came at it with a different angle. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Just real impressed with everyone's submission.
Yeah, man, I think a lot of that has to do with the theme that I chose, because everyone talked about how difficult of a theme I picked for the first one. And as a brief spoiler about what's coming up next, I think for my second one, I have an even harder theme I have come up with for people to really get into there. I'm surprised, like, when we did the voting for, like, the one that I really enjoyed, Former. I think this could also get at like kind of the difference between like me as someone who plays and like critiques a lot of video games. Was I really love the kind of the promise or the my mind is blanking on the term potential. There we go. The potential of Former. But I know it was one of the more harder games to play. Like even when we were playing it on stream, it definitely had some UX issues to it. But
wow.
I think it had a lot of potential. I think that was one of the things I said in my when I gave my kind of picks for that. It felt like a lot of these games really could take that next step into being like either like a budget indie game or just being like a full title.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, like Former, like that one definitely is a standout. You know, like if everything was more pulled together with the UI issues and some of the stop time things that we mentioned, just some of the critiques, it would have definitely been up there, probably a winner, right? And again, like you mentioned, like so many of them could be expanded on, right? And usually in game jams, you just see like they're really shallow. Really, you don't really see how it can be expanded upon, and a lot of them do have like potential that could be expanded upon. So that was very impressive.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, well, I felt both UI puzzle platformer and Former were both sort of complete puzzle experiences.
Yeah.
Kind of in some of the ways, Torori wasn't as complete, sort of a playable and sort of complete expression of a puzzle experience. Although Torori has the advantage of being one of the more clear and sort of straightforward experiences right out the get-go. I mean, Awful Marker Brothers was very clear as well. And so Torori was sort of like, it was safe, it was the right length, it was clear as hell, and it looked nice. So I thought those were really good things about it. But Former and UI Puzzle Platformer were both pretty impressive, actually, in terms of them being seen. Imagining them as like actual, just legit demos of puzzle games I might be interested on Steam. I think both of those were pretty solid.
I thought Rory was really like the Adventures of Lolo, and when they demo for it, I remember this now. The boxes were all lined up 1, 2, 3, and I thought that's how you had to get them into the gate or the hole. And once I figured out you didn't have to, I was like, wow, this game just became a lot easier. Like, what was this, a 10-day game jam, Josh?
It was, yeah, we boosted, we actually went up to 14 days for this one, but going forward, it will be 10 days.
As far as, I mean, if I had to compare, Former to Torori just, it looked more polished just from a graphic standpoint. It wasn't quite Holy Tower, but still, as far as like the puzzle aspect of it goes, I did better in Torori, especially once I figured out that you could just put one box in at a time. with Former, what really got me was laying the block and then moving the block.
Yeah,
part of it was like, well, I just put this down and it feels like it needs to stay there. So as far as going into like a next level type of like intermediate level difficulty, I think Former probably has that going for it, but Torori really it had the shell built that you could start adding other kinds of little enemies or blocks or things like that. I thought Terraria was pretty good.
Dude, I could totally imagine my like nieces and nephews playing Terraria on Apple TV. I just like walking into the grandparents' house and seeing this and up on the screen. I mean, I think from a product standpoint, it fires on the cylinders stronger than a lot of the other competitors. I think maybe there's some, UI puzzle platform is pretty solid across the board. I think UI puzzle platformer and former both sort of suffered a little bit from the simple nature of the graphics. Although if it was going to become a product, they probably want to keep that simple nature. Former is a great candidate for one of those hard games, which is sort of finicky in its controls and drives regular people insane kind of play experience with its puzzling.
The funny thing about UI UX was there was a bug. I think the developer messed up the Kairui time, so you can just wall jump to solve like almost like every puzzle. You can just sequence break the entire game.
Well, of course, only you figured that out. I didn't figure that out.
Yeah, and to go back to Max's comment about like Holy Tower and definitely like the very wide range of aesthetics. This was one of the bits of feedback that we got from a few people was that we definitely had a very wide range of assets used in this for the game jam. Like Holy Tower, I think Project B was all original. I think that's what the developer was saying. And I remember Josh we were looking at that game on stream, had some very great carpet textures. Like carpet and ceiling that were really well done. But I think it does, like, this was one of the critiques was that we only had 3 categories for this game jam. And I know Tomo and I were talking about this, I think, during like the last bit of judging, was that we had, I think, a lot of like ties, and it didn't feel like there was enough categories that kind of differentiate the different games from one another.
And more than 5 values inside the categories as well might help.
Yeah.
Speaking of Holy Tower, though, I really appreciated Holy Tower for sort of how complete and how beautiful it was. Certainly, all you do is walk from one point to another and hit a button, and that made the gameplay experience very anemic. But in terms of like a game jam completed within the time frame, that is a complete experience. That is completely nice looking. I thought that was a great, possibly a great choice. But ultimately, it was just get the A, B, C story and then finish. And that might have been a little bit too simplistic from an experience standpoint.
Yeah, and go ahead.
It was at a clock, and now it's a race. So for me to try to find the tower might have taken me a little bit longer than when Josh was on stream. But that's how I looked at it. Like, I'm racing to this point, and well, Josh beat me, so he would have won.
Yeah, so as I said, like, one of the changes I'm going to make going forward is that I removed aesthetics out of performance. It's going to be its own category, so we're now up to 4. I don't think I can change. Josh, you said that there's no way I can change like the amount of like score we can give on itch, right? It has to be between 1 and 5.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm hoping with more categories that may help to at least spread out the point curve a little bit better.
Yeah, I think that if that was one of the biggest issues is that, we only had it was 3. We had 3 categories, so that definitely made it, caused some ties that I don't think should have happened, or games to be above other games that shouldn't have happened. So if we had some more categories, that definitely would have evened it out. So
yeah. And if anyone either here on the group or for those of you watching this on the channel can think of other categories that you think would be justifiable to add to the game jam, let me know and we'll kind of decide, and if we have to, we can add more to it. I
think you can add clarity and completeness. Those 2 are good ones, because then it'll also, because what I like about about those is that they'll judge positively the game jammers that kind of strategize the scope better.
All right.
For example, on the flip side, I think Death of a Hero, somewhere deep down, might be my favorite game amongst the Game Wisdom games, but it is not easily judgeable, and it is completely impossible to understand, like, truly, and it was not in scope for me to actually understand it. But what it promised my brain was pretty positive.
The potential for what it promised, right? Yeah, I had a hard time like really understanding what was going on with that one. That one was a little difficult for me.
I just remember going through all those choices and going like, oh, it's like a story experience. And they're just like, it's kind of like the beginning of Ultima 4 or like the beginning of Tyranny or something. And then I get dropped into this like grid puzzle fight thing. And I started to understand it. And then that was it. I got back to it. I wasn't able to advance it much. I would need hours probably with it to understand it. But I liked what I hoped it would be.
For me, that game would have been Super Marionette, where like that really brought me back to when I was in college. I used to play this game about Lilo and Stitch. You're riding a wave, right? And it was just up, down, up, down, up, down. And honestly, the confusion for me was level 1 was just really fast. And I just had hard keeping up with what was up, what was down, what was up, what was down. But just that's something that simple to me was just really fun as I was playing it.
Yeah, I did love like the simplicity of Super Marionette. Just the confusion of like which platform could move which way or how much. That was the only thing that really held it back. If like that was streamlined, it would have been like a very great cathartic game to play through. Just like Matt, Tomo, you were talking about seeing your kids playing it on Apple TV. I could see my son playing that on his phone like all day. So
right. Like the running temple game where you're just swiping back and forth. That's kind of a vibe I got from that.
Definitely.
It's a pretty clever take on an endless runner. In fact, I think if all you added was visual indication of what the behavior of the platform was going to be, now it's like a response time flow type of experience that you could just play on and on and on. No, it's some really solid bones in the design of that one.
I think the issue for me with that one was that it was just not scaling right to my browser window, so I just could never see either like all the way at the top, all the way at the bottom at the same time. So I was playing on a high difficulty mode there.
Well, I needed more time with it too because I don't know really how deep I went because the way that plays is run, jump, 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 push down, jump forward, back up, jump, 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 and then die. Or die way before them the first time, right? And then do exactly the same shit again and again, and then die, and then advance, and then die. And it's exactly that kind of game, too.
Let's see. So, the one that I think everyone thought was very interesting was X Deaths Till Life. This was by Shadowblades or Chris. And his definitely had a lot of potential, but I think, again, part of like what we had the issues with the kind of judging was that it definitely got higher than I thought it would, considering that even he said that it wasn't really like a fully fleshed out game.
I think the theme was pretty interesting. I think it did take a little bit of time for my mind to get wrapped around with the sort of authorial intent of the experience. But once I got that, which unfortunately took me a bit too long, then I'm like, okay, now I want to explore all the permutations and I want to find out the path to get there. And it's a weird game, and it's kind of thought provoking, and it makes you question all kinds of things. It's like that's just a pixelated field of color, but it means something. I wonder what it means. Oh no, I'm not supposed to be in there. Darn it! And then try again. Oh wait. Am I thinking? I am thinking of the same game, right? I'm looking at the thumbnail.
Yeah,
X Deaths Till Life was one.
Like the little worm, or like
you transform and you go into these very different settings, right? Okay, cool. Yeah, because that was I thought it was very interesting.
And again, like just like the amount of potential that each one of these games, like that one to me, just like has like endless potential. And I just, although like the lack of completeness, again, it wasn't fully complete. There was some bugs that didn't allow me to fully explore it. But I think what it offered and like its take on the theme was quite amazing.
I think my game glitched out as I was trying to start it. So,
Speaking of glitching out, did anyone get just keep pulling working?
I
think that's how it works.
I kept getting like a
Wait, what do you
virus
mean?
error on that one.
Oh, okay.
The virus one.
I had no idea what I was doing there. Honestly, my feedback was I thought Andy Kaufman made it.
Yeah. Okay. I think it might be the most experimental game of the lot. You do basically it's sort of existential like exercise. You have you have choices, but you have no choice. Everything ends up the same way over and over and over again, and you just have to keep pulling until you lose, or you stop pulling and you lose. What was that? You broke up?
Or until you just stop, like you said.
Yeah. It's hard. It's certainly very difficult to judge that one ahead of the others because the gameplay ultimately is kind of a single choice that you make, right? It's a dialogue tree. It's very limited. I think some of the underpinnings are sort of interesting. I don't know how you flesh it out necessarily. I do like its scope, though, for a game jam, right? It's small, it's tight, it's done. You understand it, and you're able to judge it.
Yeah.
See, what was the other one? And I know, I think a few of you may have problems with. I know Hero to Zero had some issues with like getting that one to work. I think I had to use a 7-zip to actually unzip that one, but I know it also had some issues. But for those of you who did play, like, what did you think of that one?
I thought it was nice. I think it was rough.
Yeah.
And then I think maybe something that hurts it is that it's sort of in the meaty middle of the various expressions around Backwards Day. Like it has, and I think that if it was maybe just like limited the scope a bit, made the sequence of things that you do kind of a little more clear. Although the losing of the abilities was a great. That's probably the most innovative thing there in the way that was handled, and it created sort of like a reverse timeline for you.
The one that I liked, which was the first one we played, was Down to Earth, and I said that was the one that came closest to one of the ideas that I had. That one was interesting. I definitely saw some potential. It was weird by the fact that it had like that randomized jump that I just never seemed to get to work 100%.
And the invisible like platform holes or ghost platforms, didn't really like that too much.
It was a really hard game.
Yeah,
and so it's really difficult. It way more than Former, right? In terms of like how many times your misclicks or mistaps would lead with a frustrating result.
Yeah, but the fact that you could leave the flag there so you could save your progress was that was a big help in that one, because otherwise, yeah, I could see going from 4 screens down back up to the top as something reset wise frustrating level. I thought Down to Earth was actually fun to play with the keyboard. Like my system didn't stop me from at least playing it pretty well, I don't think.
Well, I think it's a pretty sound game. I think if it was going to be extended into its own product, it'd want to really lean into that frustration, like really find a place for itself amongst the hard games, the games that that are just super finicky in the controls and brutal, right? And find those players that want to achieve against that brutal difficulty.
And you could expand upon that difficulty too by introducing other elements like airplanes and birds and things that are moving to interact with you. I agree that the invisible ones are some of the. I was looking at some of the graphics here. I remember this cloud level.
The cloud level
where you were supposed to be.
Yeah, that is another side effect, though, of having such a difficult, finicky game, is that it needs to be rock solid, right? The player can't blame the developer for their frustration, or else it'll break down.
Right.
Yeah, but a few games did get removed from the submission fee. I guess they felt like we may have judged them too harshly, or there just wasn't enough there. The that one where you control a bunch of goblins, which that one was interesting, but it also I think going back to kind of from Tomo's comment about having like completeness as one of the categories, that I just could not get that one to finish. Like I kept getting stuck in, literally stuck in doorways, which again proves that doorways are the ultimate enemy in all game dev.
It's certainly a lot more complicated than you'd guess.
Mm-hmm. The tower defense one I thought was interesting.
That one got removed too, huh?
Yeah. That one I think was a case where it felt like there's too much going on. Like it felt like it got a little like overdeveloped in terms of what they were trying to get with that basic design.
But wasn't it fairly short, right?
Mm-hmm.
You were able to complete it, and then it was game over. I thought that had some, it had some good bones for a tower defense. I mean, granted, tower defense is an awfully competitive space, and what's the new weird thing you add to it to set it apart? At the same time, there are plenty of tower defenses that are super straightforward, and many of them can do well.
Mm-hmm.
Although, man, I don't know if anyone's ever going to beat Bloons 6. Jeez.
What was y'all's thoughts on Rise of the Tomb Lords?
Oh yeah, I liked it. I feel like if that was the kind of game that I could kind of play longer, and that there was like a lot of territory to eat up, like if it was sort of like Rogue from back in the day kind of vibe, where I just kept on chewing through territory and escalating difficulty, and then dying, and then maybe having some power-ups, and then going for it again, like that could hold up. And it had a very late 80s CGA vibe, which helped it because of my age, I think.
Yeah, I think that's why I was vibing on it too, and I thought it was a really nice take on it and everything. The controls were just could use a little bit of adjustment for me, the way the player controller worked. But I think overall, I like the take. I thought it was neat.
Graphically, that's my Zaxxon game. That the 3D bag. So I mean, visually it looked great. I'm with you though. My controls just. The little, I called them the Lego minifigs because that's what they look like to me. The fact they just keep coming and respawning over and over created a level of difficulty for what like level 1 would be. It felt like it was level 7. Like even when Josh was playing on the stream, like he'd take 2 steps to the left and they have respawned 10 more guys.
Yeah.
Found out that you had to find the Pharaoh guy who was actually doing the respawning. Seeing him on the screen maybe sooner would have been, I have to go kill that guy. I get that. As opposed to just over and over whacking on these little tiny minifig dudes. But yeah, graphically, that was one of the top 3 for me, I think, just because of the angles that you had to take, and it felt 3D.
That one in particular could have definitely benefited from more clarity.
Yeah. The confusion of it, kind of hurt it a little bit.
I think for me, like that one, like again, like that was one that I think as someone who of this group, I play all the hard games, so I think that one like clicked relatively easy for me. But again, another really solid bones in terms of that kind of gameplay structure. And I know I said this on the stream, was I could see it go either way, as being like a full-on roguelike, or being just like a full-on like kind of action adventure with each stage, taking away different powers, letting you get them back, that kind of thing. But yeah, like as to Max's point about like it did feel like I was on ice skates a lot in that one, like even as an ARPG kind of UI.
Right before that, I just want to make one comment about Project B. I thought the mood was really good, and I was scared, and I'm like, what's going to happen? In a lot of ways, maybe I never really truly figured out how things were supposed to play out, but I did wander around a bunch and had a lot of imagination while it was happening. It's always tough to make those 3D games with the lower fidelity graphics, trying to make those hold up. You really do have to create like tricks of the mind to make those experiences hold up.
Yeah, I thought it was great. Go ahead, Max.
Go
ahead.
Absolutely. I was waiting for the jump scare guy in the dark. And what I really liked about it is I'm looking at the screenshots now. The camcorder battery. As
Yes.
yeah, that created a sense of tension. And I don't remember from my gameplay if there was music in there too that added to it, but I think for some reason I thought there was. But graphically, maze in the dark, just waiting for the thing to jump at you. Yeah.
Yeah, excellent carpet textures. I loved. It's it's based off like the back rooms. So I don't know if y'all watched the back rooms or anything, but it's kind of where they took that from. So it was nice seeing a nice horror take with the back rooms, and then I think it was actually the only horror submission, right? So it was really good for me to see a horror submission, and then again, like trying to figure it out like mentally how it was playing with you was really nice for me, and also reminded me of the Controls like Faceball 2000. So that was a nice throwback to me.
Yep, I like that one. I think the issue for me and why I didn't grade it as Holly was that I didn't see the kind of opposite, like the theme. I don't think was presented as well in that one compared to some of the other ones. Because the developers are like, it was supposed to be like opposite that you're fighting the monster, but my mind just meant, well, that's just like every survival horror game from 1991 to like today. But
yeah, I think of all the submissions, that was probably the weakest on the theme.
Yeah, and I think I'm going to draw up, I think after this is over, kind of like all the metrics again, all the judging criteria that I think of, and to Tomo's suggestion, and I'll show you guys this later and see what you think. Because maybe going up maybe 2 or 3 more categories may like solve this issue. Because if I can't raise the score value, I can at least add more categories to really make it a lot harder for there to be ties.
And I think in addition to that, you can also set a single sentence description for what 5 means in any of these given things. What does 1 mean, right? And then we can score in between. And that way, there's that the numerical values then end up representing a description of some sort as well.
Okay, sounds good. So with that, I think we've covered all the games. Any other final points about any of the submissions before we kind of like get into like the final section?
Let's see. So I think we went over all the games here. Yeah, I think that's about it there.
Okay. Yeah. So with that, for kind of the final part of this video, I want to kind of give everyone a chance to go around, share your thoughts on the jam, suggestions, feedbacks. We've kind of littered this video throughout with some of them, but I figured this would be a great place to kind of centralize all these thoughts. So we'll go in reverse order this time. So we'll start with Tomo, go to Max, and then up to Josh. So Tomo, what did you think of the game jam and suggestions, feedback, and so on?
I was pretty impressed. I'd say to kind of just mirror Josh's positivity right out the gates. I think it's great that what people did, what they pulled together, the diversity of the builds, as really really good stuff. And in terms of like we were talking about, in terms of just how to go forward from here. I don't know. I guess it's always dangerous to add more clarification on the theme because the loose interpretations actually get some really interesting results. But the more axes to judge them on, maybe having an official written answer that each of us have been assigned for each of the things. I know I did mine in a hurry at the very last minute, and so that would have been a little bit harder for me. But still, I think I should have had a little a paragraph for each. And I guess part of it'll depend on what the theme is.
Right, over to Max.
I was blown away, honestly, by the level of which these games came in with just 14 days worth of design, develop, testing, and implementation. As far as going through the design process to get a lot of what we got in just 2 weeks, really impressed me with the level of ability that these designers have. As far as going forward, I know in this jam, originality was like the connection to the theme. I almost think you can split that up, because I looked at some of these as their own original thoughts, and then again, some of the games we saw derivatives, we saw inspirations drawn. I think originality can be its own thing. Like, if you come up with an original idea versus just an idea that connects with the theme, I think that's an opportunity for a different category. So originality versus connection to theme, because there was a lot of them that I felt were more original than the connection to the theme would have implied. Just the fact that the opposite situation was in the originality scope, that could be an opportunity going forward. As far as the criteria that we saw and the ties or whatever, I like to think that the votes came in a way that would be pretty close if we had extra criteria. But I also agree that having more would separate what we're looking to separate, if that makes sense.
Definitely. Yeah, and I'm basically just gonna, almost repeat myself again. I was blown away. I was very impressed by what everyone produced a short amount of time, even with the little bit of extension. You know what I mean? All of them kept the scope pretty well, within check. Everyone was like, all the designs were very unique. Not a lot of derivative stuff, and again, I think everybody just did a really great job. And going forward, like we've mentioned before, just a few more criteria to judge it on. And other than that, and and for the judging, I think, like Tomo mentioned, so like whatever criteria we do decide on, like just like a sentence explaining what each criteria does, just so it's not as open to interpretation for the judges, so that way we know, okay, this is what we're judging it on. And I think that might clear some stuff up. But just again, I was just blown away by there was people using their own engines, the variety of engines used, and then for a theme that was actually just recently done, they were able to come up with such unique stuff. And so again, I was just really proud of everyone and blown away. I think everyone did a great job.
All right. And so for myself, so as I said earlier, in terms of changes that I've already kind of settled on that will be in concrete going forward. So the first one, again, is that I am going to set it to 10 days. I think 10 days is more than fair, and that should be enough time, because people did get confused. Like, the original 7 days felt like it was a little too short for the concept, while I think 14 days may be right on that cusp of being just too long for people to kind of dedicate time to it. One suggestion someone made that I really did like, that will definitely be going forward, is that I want to set this up maybe for the first weekend of the month. So that way we will announce the theme on a Friday, and people will have at least guarantee 2 full weekends in terms of time to work on things. That will also hopefully cut down on the stress of having to work during the weekdays. And again, for the people watching or who have families and other jobs, they can at least have those 48 hours. Hopefully, maybe let's set the family out for some time. Say, I have to go do game jamming. Let's see, other changes. I do like the suggestions everyone has made about more topics, and like I said, I'm thinking about how I'm going to organize things, and to Tomo's suggestion about maybe having it also on the information page about what does a 1 to 5 means. And I think this will also be good for the people submitting as well, so they'll understand that, if we give this a 4 out of 5 versus this one got a 1 out of 5, why was, what was our rationale for it? Other than that, the same plan is going to remain in effect. That I want to, whenever we do these, I want to get the whole thing, judging, submitting, the whole shebang done within 1 month. And I think that is more than doable. And I think one thing going forward, and this is to the judges and to anyone else who will come on for judging, is I do want, by the time we get to kind of like my judging stream, I think I want the judges to finish their judging first. This way, there's no attempt or no one can think, oh, we all wait until the very end and, Josh kind of dictated, if I said this game was good, all the judges would agree. If I said this game was bad, all the judges will agree. This way, it will also be better for you guys, so you don't have to worry about waiting until when I play them in order to start. Because again, one of the big things, I think this goes back to Josh's comment about the quality of the games we got. I did not think we were going to get anywhere above 10 games. I thought we were going to get like 2 or 3, and that was going to be it.
And I mean, how long did the stream last? It was like 4 hours?
It was something like that. It felt like 5 to 10 hours of us playing that.
I missed like two meals.
I know. I was starting to fade by the end of that stream.
But I couldn't make the.
Yeah, Max said, I gotta go.
Yeah. But yeah, again, I do want to give a shout out to everyone who submitted games, and even to the people who signed up. We did have over, I think, 60 people who signed up, but again, with the theme, I think it did kind of weed out a lot of them. And like I said, for the next theme, it's going to probably be even harder, at least in my mind. But then, again, I seem to be completely off about it, so maybe we'll get 50 entries for the next one. But since you guys said everything, go ahead. What was that?
If we get 50, we need a little bit more time to judge.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I think one theme will have to be a horror-specific theme, and see if anyone can make a game that scares me. And that will probably put all the judges in the hospital when they try those demos. And like I said, for people watching, I already have one other person confirmed as a 5th judge. They'll probably be introduced and so on when we get to that time. And I'm still looking for a few more judges, so I figure this will be one of those things where the more the merrier. And again, with more categories, will definitely help spread things out. As another big change, I did ask everyone about what their thoughts on in terms of having a cash prize, entry fee, stuff like that. And the general consensus was that money is not really needed. So going forward, we won't be having a actual monetary prize, but I am going to be talking with VGC USA as well as with my publisher about anything in terms of sponsoring the event with prizes or little things or anything like that to help people or give them a greater incentive, and we shall see how that one goes.
Yeah, Josh and I think we talked about developer asset packs and things like that, maybe as also prizes.
Mm-hmm. But other than that, I think that will do it for this video. We actually did it in under an hour, so I think we managed to keep things on track. So, as I said, for people watching, again, thank you to everyone who signed up, to everyone who submitted, and to our grand prize winner for Awful Marco Brothers. And at some point, I will try and get them on for a little discussion. And as I said, be sure to stay tuned, because I will be announcing very shortly, I think, at least as we're recording this in early October, about plans for the next Game Jam. Once I have all the rules and everything kind of formally reorganized and updated, we'll go forward with that. So, before we end things, I'll give everyone one chance to give any shout-outs, promos, anything they would like to say. So, we'll start with Josh this time and work our way around one more time around our little group.
Okay, just the usual. I have my links down below, wish list my games. And I'm just looking forward to the next Game Jam, and I'm proud of everything everyone submitted. That's about it.
All right, to Max?
Yeah, so shout out to VGC USA, and as the resident tabletop game designer, my game design Lords of Baseball just got published from Laboratory H and Mr. B and L4 Studios, and that was a whole project that I'm incredibly proud of. It's called Lords of Baseball, if you ever want to check that out, if you like tabletop games.
Awesome.
All right. And done with Tomo.
And like I said before, I'm one of the founders of Hyperkinetic Studios, and we have a game on Steam Early Access called Epic Tavern, and we do stream development on Twitch a few times a week. and you can find us at twitch.tv/epictech.
Well, with that said, we're going to wrap things up for everyone watching. Again, if you're here on the channel, do the YouTubing stuff, subscribe, like, all that. Check out the Discord and Patreon. Buy all the copies of my books as well. And maybe we'll do a book on game jams at some point in the future. And
I like it.
yeah. And like I said, if you do join the Discord, that will be where we will also be organizing the game jam as well. You can find people, leave suggestions, talk, chat, as well as on the itch.io page when that one is created. But, gentlemen, again, I do want to thank you guys so much for agreeing to be judges. I hope you enjoyed things, and I hope to see everyone here when we announce the next theme and so on.
Definitely.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Alright, so with that said, come back for daily discussions on game design here and on game wisdom, where some of the art and science of games. And until our next chat, have a great night.